Well, President Biden spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky late last night. Later in the night, Zelensky issued a statement saying that Europe and the rest of the world needs to wake up as Europe's largest power plant was attacked by Russia. White House correspondent Kevin Cork joins us from the nation's capital. Kevin.
Morning, Trace. Conversations between the leaders of Ukraine and the U.S. Danger at a power plant in Ukraine, and, of course, the U.S. still consuming Russian oil. Just some of the many headlines from Washington this morning. The White House continuing to insist that buying Russian oil and energy, which critics charge effectively helps Moscow to fuel its war effort in Ukraine, is again, according to the White House, something America should not stop buying at the moment, because to do that would raise energy prices right here at home. And if you know anything about our energy prices, they have been skyrocketing, although this is a real debatable point. Still, let me take you to the White House press briefing room and share what Jen Psaki had to say about the idea of the U.S. continuing to buy Russian oil. Quote, "We don't have a strategic interest in reducing the global supply of energy." Well, that's interesting, because just last year it was the Biden administration, as you know, that scrapped major U.S. oil pipeline projects. Hello, Keystone, anyone? And also tried to halt new drilling leases, which most certainly would have impacted global energy supply. I mean, it's really basic, right? Still, very interesting times here in Washington, Trace. I know it's a split right down the middle kind of town. Well, there is bipartisan agreement apparently on one issue, and that is we really need to find energy elsewhere, especially with what Russia is doing to Ukraine. Of all people, the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying this about ending Russian oil imports, quote, "I'm all for that. Ban it." Meanwhile, the White House yesterday announced more sanctions. You talked a bit about this in our last hour, and I think it's a very important note for folks at home. This is part of a NATO pressure campaign, Trace, against Vladimir Putin's inner circle. The latest round of sanctions will target members of 7 influential families, probably all billionaires. They'll be cut off from the U.S. financial system. Their assets in the U.S. will be frozen, and perhaps most of all important, their property will be blocked from use.
Severe economic sanctions on Putin and all those folks around him, choking off access to technology as well as cutting off access to the global financial system. It's had a profound impact already.
Now, when the president says a profound impact already, that's debatable. We'll have to see if that's actually true and what the long-term impact might be, especially when we're talking about oligarchs with major money. From the White House's perspective, Trace, it's as simple as this. Pressure on those in the inner circle of Vladimir Putin ultimately will affect him. We'll see if, in fact, that strategy works out. Trace?
We shall see, Kevin, but if they're trying to save us money, they really need to go out and fill their gas tanks, because outside the back door, gas has gone up 10 cents a gallon every single day since this war began. And if it stays on that pace, in fact, you know, $6 a gallon gas in the West Coast in California is almost the norm. You see it all over the place now. So they're not saving any money by continuing to buy Russian oil.
No question about that. Thank you, Trace.
Kevin Cork, thank you. The world watches with new concerns and fear upon word that not even nuclear power plants are safe from Russian aggression. The fire at the nuclear plant in Enerhoder is now out, and so far radiation levels there appear to be normal, but the threat still exists and reveals the extent of Russians' determination to claim stake to Ukraine's sovereign territory. With me now, retired Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt. He is now a tech entrepreneur and co-founder of Restore Liberty. General, great to see you again. We should note the breaking news here is that now it appears the AP is reporting that the Russian troops have taken over that nuclear power plant, and that can't be a good thing. I know we talk strategy, but I want to quickly get your thoughts on what this means in the scheme of the Russian attack on Ukraine.
Well, it's anyone's guess at this point, Trace. It's great to be with you this evening. The problem is, after they went and took the shot at the power plant, you have a potential crime against humanity. My understanding from talking to people on the ground is that the fire was extremely close to fuel rods. And we're just all very lucky that the reactor was in a maintenance condition, not in a full-up status, or we would have another Chernobyl on our hands. Yeah. That the Russians have now taken over and controlled that plant means that the horror may not be over yet for that that plant. They could have other means, but we're in a new total war situation that is well beyond the Geneva Convention, and we're dealing with a rogue force that is in no way what we would call adherent to the law of armed conflict.
And I would guess there is a very fine line between attacking a nuclear power plant and actually firing a nuclear weapon. I mean, you know, you would say, oh, the two are divergent, but when you're talking about attacking a nuclear power plant and firing a nuclear weapon, it would be in the same category as far as war playbooks go.
That's exactly correct. And this would be, by the way, in this war so far, the second dirty bomb that they would have created through combat means. Chernobyl, from the firefight that happened there in, I think, day 2 or day 3, moved so much soil and dirt around that the rad level had gone just up exponentially. Not probably lethal right there where people were standing, not so much for the rest of Europe, but now we are here and we're very close to fuel rods, and this could poison the whole area. So my question would be, what in fact does Putin have on his mind? Is this regime change, or is this a complete depopulation of the Ukraine?
Right. And if it goes further, at what point in time is there a red line? And at what point in time does NATO and the EU and the United States say, okay, well, enough is enough? How many war crimes can you commit? How many times can you break the rules, blatantly break the rules, before somebody gets up and starts doing something more than just, you know, shoveling weapons in through Poland?
Yeah, exactly. And so while they're assaulting nuclear power plants that could kill millions of people well beyond the borders of Ukraine, we're getting wrapped up and patting ourselves on the back with UN resolutions condemning action. And while those things have some utility, this is not the NATO that Putin should be fearing. We have to come together now and decide, are we going to stop this here? Because I will tell you, this is going to go well beyond Ukraine if this goes the way that Putin is envisioning it.
Yeah, I want to get your take on the southern part of the country now, because they have taken Kherson. We know that the Russians control that area. There is a lot of talk that they really want Odessa, because if they can get Odessa and they keep Kherson, that really enables them to control the ports, the supply chain, if you will, coming in. Do you think they have the resources? I mean, it's a very big country. They don't have that many, well, 150, 170,000. Do you think they have the resources to maintain Kherson and still take Odessa and then possibly move north?
You know, the Russians are facing a very determined enemy, but they're now starting to face a determined coalition of the willing amongst citizens. We're looking at, I've been talking to groups all day long. I've been getting involved with establishing everything from field hospitals to how many bulletproof vests are going into the country. And it's just like we saw at the tail end of Afghanistan when we started leaving people behind. We see groups saying, oh, no, listen, forget the governments. We've got to get involved. Well, the Ukrainians are definitely ready to defend Odessa. What my concern is that Kherson is really a city of 300,000 people. So a push on from there and then an amphib unit from the sea will make it very difficult for the Ukrainians to defend Odessa.
I wonder, but I just want to lastly talk about this, and we've talked about it a bunch, this convoy that's still stuck 15 miles outside of Kyiv. Is there a plan? I mean, what is happening? Do they need to refuel? Because I've talked to 10, or not talked to, I've listened to 10 different military analysts today and got 10 different responses on what's happening with this convoy, and I'd like you to be the 11th, if you would, General.
Yeah, well, here comes number 11. The Russian army is bogged down, not just maintenance-wise, logistically-wise. They're bogged down psychologically. The Ukrainians have air assets that are bringing a very bloody nose to the front of that column. They don't have A-10s that could wrap up that column in an afternoon, but they are whittling away at the front of that column, and the Russians are understanding they're in the face of a foe that's just not going to let them in. And the other thing I would say is that column, from an airman's perspective, if you were a tank commander, that is the last way you would want to array your vehicles. They are so close together, and those gas tanks are so close together that an efficient airstrike is going to make it just a mess.
Yeah, it's a lethal domino. I got to go. I just want to, Vladimir Putin said today that this war is going exactly the way he planned it. Your final thoughts?
That makes him one of the greatest criminals in military history, and he should be judged so. And if his aspiration is to be like Joe Stalin, he's on his path to exceed that.
General Holt, always great to see you, sir. Thank you for coming on.
Great to see you, Trace. Thank you.
Well, Vladimir Putin saying the invasion in Ukraine is going according to plan. A former CIA covert operations officer weighs in on what that plan might be exactly. And he's next.